Hello, this is Force 13 Live. My name's Nathan Foy. Hopefully I'm here, able to talk to you. Oh, excellent. It's gone above the streaming bar. That's fantastic. I was there somewhere, for a brief moment in time. But this is Force 13 Live. You don't need to see me anyway. We're looking at this. This is Hurricane Michael that we're looking at in the Atlantic. It's moving through the Yucatan Channel, brushing the western coast of Cuba at this time. And this storm is likely to be a very significant one for the coast of the US, the Gulf Coast that is. The main area that we're looking at in the next few days is the coast of Florida, and possibly some of the neighboring states, and also further to the northeast as well, potentially into the Carolinas that have already been drenched once this year, and it would be terrible if it happened again. It could develop. It is developing right now. It's at 978 millibars at the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, and further strengthening is likely. We're just working everything out here at the minute. We're still fiddling a lot. So let's see if we can introduce our team right now, which consists of quite a few people. First of all, we're joined by David. Hello, David.
Good to be here, Nathan. And hi to our viewers.
How are you?
Well, considering it's 4 o'clock at my HQ, daylight saving started on Sunday in the southern states, so I'm here to help bring the latest information.
We sure will. Let's see if I can just look at everyone here on the screen. There they are. A lot of people showing satellite imagery. We're also... I don't know who's who now either. We're also joined by Hank, who's showing us this true color imagery on the screen.
Yeah, hello everyone.
I should just remove that headline there as well, because we are now indeed live. Hurricane warning in effect for the western coast of Cuba. Hurricane watch for a large part of the US. We're also joined by Frank in this hour. Hello.
Hello, Nathan.
Nice of you to join us again as we continue to look at the Atlantic situation. Who else do we have? We're also joined by Adam.
Hello.
Who goes by the nickname of So, which I'm still yet to understand.
I don't know. I've just had it since like a few years ago, and I don't know. I don't know why I picked it.
Showing us Tropical Storm Leslie, and we're also joined by Tyler as well. Good evening, good afternoon to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Again, good.
That's everyone, right? Okay, good. On our screen right now is the latest imagery of Michael. Who wants to go first on this? There's so much to talk about when it comes to this. In fact, I sort of should take that carrot away again just for a minute whilst I let everyone know what the current warnings are. You see them at the bottom of the screen every so often as well. Hurricane warning for Pinar del Rio in Cuba. Tropical storm warning for the Isle of Youth in Cuba and the coast of Mexico from Tulum to Cabo Catache, including Cozumel. A storm surge watch for Navarre, Florida to Anna Maria Island, including Tampa Bay. A hurricane watch for the Alabama-Florida border to Suwannee River, Florida. A tropical storm watch from the Suwannee River to Anna Maria Island, including Tampa Bay, and the Alabama-Florida border to the Mississippi-Alabama border. So those warnings will probably get stepped up in the US, maybe tomorrow, maybe later on. And now I will go and ask who would like to start. Let's start with that rainfall graphic that we're looking at there, I suppose. Talk us through this, if I may.
It seems that, like, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where that is. It seems it's on the Panhandle. 10 inches, it seems, could possibly be, but then again, it's way too early to tell and all that.
Up to 10 inches. That's interesting, because that's isn't that more than what the NHC have been saying until now?
In some regards, yeah, but I mean, considering that the storm is supposed to be moving a little bit slower.
They're saying isolated up to 12.
Yeah, considering the storm's moving a bit slower now, that does make some sort of sense. I mean, if this does follow the GFS solution moving a bit faster, then rainfall would be less, but generally that solution's been a bit too fast, so rainfall is probably going to be 10, 12 inches, isolated higher amounts, something like that.
And we're also looking at those models there on the screen now.
Yeah, the model spread's been rather interesting. It's, again, more dependent on...
Interesting, you say. Very interesting.
Well, I mean, it's just dependent on one factor, and that's speed. The models that are going faster are showing it moving in towards, Destin, maybe even like Seaside, Panama City, that area. Models are slower are moving it in towards the Big Bend, towards St. Mark's and Cedar Key, because troughs just going to be amplifying more, and that's going to result in a further eastward component if the storm does delay itself. And right now it's kind of averaging out between two solutions. GFS was saying it'd be pretty much in the Gulf by now. The Euro was saying it'd be a bit farther south. It's kind of in between those two solutions at the moment. So, I mean, I guess in between Panama City and St. Mark's, like Apalachicola would be the most likely landfall point at this point. And as a major hurricane, probably regardless of anything else.
If you've got any questions for us whilst we're on the air, start your message with Force 13 all in text. We're here for an hour at the minute. We're also going to be live. We decided recently that we're also going to be back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for another hour or two of coverage. I'm trying to get up on my window now. Here's the latest imagery of Michael as it's been progressing. The eye's been hidden a little bit by some bursts of convection.
Yeah, it would seem it's trying to develop an eye, but it's, I guess, too energetic to really put itself to the task is what I'm seeing here. But
it has an eye wall. I mean,
yeah, it's developing it. It's right there, and let me pause.
No, it's fully developed. The eye wall is fully developed. I looked on Simus Imagery just an hour ago, and it's completely developed. It just hasn't been actually being able to make it through the actual cloud tops. And I guess that imagery is a little bit that you're showing is a little bit oversaturated. It's not really showing it all too clearly. So I guess if I could pull up the actual,
I'll just get onto water vapor.
I'm looking for actual microwave. So yeah, Mimic, Michael. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, I think this is it.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, this is what I'm talking about right here. You can see right here, south of right there, last few frames, that's the eye wall right there. Now just south of the western tip of the island of Cuba right there. And right there. So yeah, it's definitely getting its act together at this point. Just based on that alone and recon observations, we're obviously confirming that because the pressure keeps on falling. And I mean, winds are a bit steady, though. I think they should probably be close to 80 miles an hour, if I'd say.
Begs the question, how big is the eye going to be? It looks like quite a large one there.
Yeah, relatively, yeah. I mean...
Bigger than the Isle of Youth.
Yeah, I mean, as it continues to progress northward, it's going to probably contract a little bit as the storm begins to intensify.
I imagine they're saying it's likely going to rapidly intensify. That would cause the eye to shrink a bit while it intensifies.
Also,
of course, if it does that too much, it could have a replacement cycle before it actually gets to the Gulf Coast.
Can't help but notice on your loop there, Hank, that the storm would appear to be moving maybe slightly east of north.
Yeah, that's just what the loop's saying. Actual recon data showed that it did shift more towards the west, just moving straight north now. Another thing I really want to point out here is look at the ferocity of these thunderstorms on the east side of the storm, just moving straight into the Isle of Youth. There's CAPE values here, convective available potential energy values, that are very high in this area, 2,500 kilojoules per or joules per kilogram. That's pretty high, especially for a tropical cyclone. So some of these thunderstorms moving in the Isle of Youth are probably going to be extremely intense. That even extends further up into Cuba. And if the storm gets far enough east, which might be a bit of a long shot, then maybe some of them might try and reach as far east as the Keys, but that's unlikely at this point because the storm's already kind of progressing a little bit further towards the west. So these actual bands getting to the Keys, I think, is kind of unlikely at this point, but it's possible if it does veer a bit further east. But that's unlikely at this point.
How do you all think about how people are making comparisons between Michael and Opal in terms of its track and intensity?
Better than comparing
Well,
it to Katrina, as someone did not long ago.
Yeah.
Did someone
Yeah.
compare it to Katrina?
Sadly.
Well, I mean, the time of year, yeah. Intensity, maybe. Size,
Track.
absolutely not. Opal was huge. This is probably going to be pretty small when it moves inland. It's already pretty small on its own. I mean, even though the eye wall's large.
That's why it's
Windfield's-
only in inverted commas a stage 3 on the CDPS.
And I've talked to some people and they're like just saying it's like Alberto, but if it's stronger.
I mean, this is kind of tracking over where Alberto did track,
It is.
Yeah, that is
Whatever.
true.
but not going to be anything.
Yeah. Also, some of the
This
outflow is already
tropical.
over Florida.
I mean, for one thing, this is tropical. For another thing, this is a hurricane. For another thing,
And
this is
another thing, it's actually projected to be quite deadly. It seems. I think what's it already? It's quite I think 9 is as the last time I checked.
9 what?
People have already been killed by Michael.
Oh yeah, from the gyre in Central America. Yeah. That happens with these type of storms because the
Right.
precursors are usually very wet. They can cause mudslides rampantly, and
We had a few
Central
questions about wind shear.
so shear is a lessening problem. At this point, there is still some westerly shear undercutting it, but it's not very strong. I could go into more detail, but I'm just going to say that it's not very strong right now, and it's
Yeah,
going
the
to
hurricane.
increase.
It would appear the hurricane sort of ignoring the shear. It just kept on strengthening with a lot of shear on it earlier its cycle.
Michael's
shear is also
rebelling
level off.
against
The shear's also level off quite a bit. It's all more focused up north, and it's continuing to be bad up towards the north as the upper low moves out into the Ohio Valley, which will continue to decrease shear over Michael. Or in some cases, through it.
Well, they did show some signs of battling that wind shear yesterday, I thought.
Yeah, the wind field, the tropical storm force winds were almost completely absent on the western side of the circulation, but now that is no longer the case.
Well, that's also
about-
because the storm center was right next to the Yucatan, and all those winds coming on land would.
The wind
cause friction.
field, 150 nautical miles to the southeast for tropical storm force winds, and 90 nautical miles in the southwest and northwestern quadrants. So that pretty much takes it 90 nautical miles. That it's about 108 or 106 from Cancun, so pretty much all the way there.
Someone in chat is saying that they found winds of 90 miles an hour.
Who did?
That's probably.
The name is Ronald Martinez Jr.
Is he in a recon flight right now?
Probably not.
I mean, they did find flight level winds of 90 miles an hour, but that's not
that must
getting
be,
to the surface.
that must be what they meant. We're actually looking at that recon thing there on there now. Is that your screen, Hank? Oh, there's us again.
Oh yeah, yeah, it actually is. So yeah, this is what the recon mission found throughout the flight. Dropped about good 6 millibars between 3 passes right here. Current pressure is about 987 at the moment. So yeah, that would be 987. So there's nothing wrong with that. And then 90 mile an hour flight level winds. In fact, 93 even. So like 81 knots.
Wow.
That would probably equate to about 80 miles an hour at the surface. And I believe it should be 80 miles an hour. But
So why didn't they do that at the update 15 minutes ago?
I don't know why they didn't do it. ATCF should update soon, and they'll probably say 80 miles an hour, I would assume. Either way, you can kind of see the center is remaining just offshore of the western tip of the Yucatan, Cuba, and the flight just went away. No, it's back. Oh, the plane updated, that's why. Yeah, it's heading back in, so this flight the actual observations are complete. The plane's just heading back in right now. So yeah, it seems like the center will miss the western tip of Cuba, but that doesn't mean that you won't see the eye wall. You're already pretty much seeing the eye wall, and pretty significant weather conditions all throughout the western part of the country. So still pretty significant regardless of whether or not it's going to come on shore.
Just going back to that opal comparison, you can see on some of the models that it has it going a bit north and making landfall on the panhandle and then curving to the east into central Georgia, into South Carolina, North Carolina, and then heading out to sea. Opal actually just went a little slightly north. It didn't curve as much as it went through Alabama, as to say central Georgia, as to what the models are saying.
Yeah, Opal really rocketed pretty much through that area and was much larger than Michael probably will ever be. So, I mean, pretty much the Opal comparisons are just there for location and time of year. Everything else is just kind of out there in the water.
Yeah, the thing is,
Yeah, because Opal, like,
it moved over to the west and then went northeast. I've never seen it as that good a comparison, really.
Yeah.
Josh Scarlett says, do you think Michael is going to get retired?
Way too early to say that one, but
Really?
Yeah, it's way too early to say that.
he hasn't even hit
go
yet.
down that path already.
If it's worst case scenario, probably, but at the moment it's way too early to tell.
Wait till it hits land first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to see damage tolls, death tolls before we can even come close to judging whether it should be retired or not.
Interesting look at those models, though. They look like they're quite tightly knit in where the eventual landfall location will be. Do we foresee any movement on that?
Probably not. I mean, it's pretty clear cut that's going to be somewhere between Panama City and Cedar Key at this point.
Well, there we have it. That's the latest on Michael. I don't know if anyone would like to talk about any of the other storms we have out there at the minute.
Oh.
Hey, I'll talk about
gonna
Sergio.
talk about Luban or whatever it's called, or
Hey, well,
05A.
we've got
Oh,
three
yeah.
other storms that could affect land in the next 5 days.
Yeah. There's Sergio, which is going to be moving from its current tranquil location in the Pacific to the Baja California Peninsula.
Probably won't be much left of it,
There
though.
is also Leslie, which is
No.
it's anyone.
That's
It's
not
anyone's
land.
guess where that.
No.
Where that one.
That's true. It is anyone's guess where that goes.
No.
It's crossed 48W
I know
4
you don't
times.
like Leslie, but we got to talk about storms.
Good old Leslie.
It's- No, just stop.
No.
Everyone's trying to say like, "Oh, it's going to be the longest-lived storm ever," and all of that.
No.
I mean,
I know,
technically it is, because it still has Florence's guts, but let's not get into that.
No.
Yeah, let's not get into
Yeah,
that.
that's
No
true.
more, please.
Hey, we should talk about the extended history of Leslie. So,
Oh yeah, let's
started-
let's go down.
Oh,
mem-
weird
So
thing
it-
saying
it's
like
stu-
this.
it started down in the Cape Verde Islands as Florence, and then, well, part of it did. You know, but basically,
it all begins.
as Florence as Florence was trying to go across the Atlantic, its remnant at least, part of it detached off into a new low pressure system, and that eventually became Leslie. And Leslie just sat in the center of the Atlantic for like a week and did nothing. Then it
And it's still
became
doing
like
nothing.
It's still doing
well, then
nothing.
it became extra tropical with hurricane force winds. Then it went back to being a tropical storm. Then it was a hurricane. Then it weakened, and now it's going east
And now it's predicted to become a hurricane again,
and go to
according to
Spain.
the NHC.
There they are as
Yeah,
well,
this-
predicting a tropical storm landfall in Baja California for Sergio.
Sense?
Yeah, with Leslie, it's anyone's guess whether it will landfall somewhere on the Iberian Peninsula or
Leslie,
in the British Isles.
Would
Or
that
at
be a
all,
record,
even.
or
Or it might even get trapped underneath the ridge and head back west.
Yes.
that would be
And then
really
it's
funny?
Looping and looping.
It has to make landfall eventually, right?
No.
It could stay.
I mean, it could just
It'll
recurve.
be November. It'll be November.
Can we
like
talk
usual.
about the
Someone just put out a message to everyone. Please stop comparing Michael to Harvey. I've not seen that yet.
who is comparing Michael
I've
to
not seen
Harvey?
that yet, but that is
Harvey.
terrible news.
Oh,
if
Anyway,
that's the case.
as I was going to say, can we talk about the like the wind extent
Do we
of
have
Leslie?
to?
Like how it's
shrunk
pretty
a
big.
bit.
Yeah.
It's been huge. I mean,
it's nearly the size of Florida, so you know it's big.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, it used to be like an extra tropical storm.
Yeah.
I mean, of course
and-
it's big. It's like borderline tropical, subtropical at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna bring up the satellite
Yep.
imagery again to show you
Like
exactly what he means by that.
Hank's showing us
Yeah,
a
I mean,
phase diagram.
Yeah, the
I mean,
phase
just
diagram.
look at this thing.
We will do in a minute.
It's a mess at the moment.
I mean, it's currently like right in here, so it's like kind of evenly dispersed between its actual core dynamics, and if anything, right now it's just a mess. Right now, it's
Yeah.
Nameless
a
is
mess.
comparing it to Nate here, so you can discuss with that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well,
We-
Michael.
we-
Nate
we
was-
keep
It's a-
bouncing
with the
from
track,
one topic
yes.
to another, though.
Track kind of intensity. We'll see how that goes.
Mm.
Michael. Well, for one, Michael is moving at literally a third of the speed of Nate, so that's one thing.
You could also make the argument that it's pretty much nearly exactly a year since Nate was around, so you can make that
Yeah.
comparison.
What, in
Well, I mean,
date
also,
form?
I mean, also, like, Nate was, if Michael was moving at the speed of Nate, we'd be talking about a hurricane landfall in Florida tonight. And that's not gonna happen.
That's not happening.
Goes to show how fast that one was going. You're looking at satellite imagery there of Leslie. Yeah, not too grand. Well, let's go
Doesn't
back.
Doesn't look
It's
like
been
a-
better.
Let's go back to the latest on Michael. This is what it's looking like right now. This is pretty much as live as we can get it. And in those latest frames, can we discern anything from that? Probably not. Only that maybe we can perhaps confirm the size of that eye from the microwave imagery, possibly on this infrared imagery. It looks like a large one might be about to form.
Yeah, I think I can kind of
Well,
see that.
About to appear. That it
Yeah.
has formed, of course.
About to burst out of there.
And we
What
didn't
about the
quite
coldest cloud top?
We didn't quite get to mention Cyclone Luban as well. We're of course doing updates on both of these two storms, Luban and Michael, and if we had time for the others, we'd do more updates on there, but we sort of picked them up in the live event as well. We've tried to cover everything. It is a tropical storm, likely to become a hurricane strength cyclone in the next few days as it approaches the coast of Oman. And at the moment,
from
though,
the early signs here, it could be a case that Mukalla could potentially be the area where it could be closest to landfall. But again, like most storms, it's too early to tell and anything can change.
now the GFS has been trending westwards, and the HWRF never called for a landfall on Oman, so there is definitely the possibility that it could avoid Oman.
And according to this track prediction here, it could go as east as between Salalah and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, and possibly as west as not even on Oman. I think near Djibouti or something, or could
The coast
even
of Yemen.
the coast of Yemen. Yeah.
Possible. With the way the models are trending, you know, it might end up that
I
way.
mean, the Euro's pretty much like
Oh my.
putting it right through like a Chapala type track
Oh,
right
no.
now. So, like right into western Yemen. And I mean, I forgot what that sea is called. Forgive me,
The
but
Red Sea.
no, not that one. It's the one between
Oh,
Yemen
that
and
one.
Somalia. It's the one between Yemen and Somalia.
I think it's the Gulf. I think it's the Gulf of Aden.
The Gulf of Aden.
Gulf of Aden. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving right through the Gulf of Aden, and it's 987 millibars on the
So
at 120
maybe
hours.
a
Run
week,
still loading. So
or maybe not such a week, but a category 1 by the looks of things, going to model consensus.
Yeah,
would
it
you say?
seems that's
something like that. Yeah.
Now that's the GFS there, which has also been backing off on intensity a little bit. So I suppose that might be why it's calling for a westward trend.
A little bit.
Let's
Sure.
see what the GFS thinks on the Atlantic. Oh god, this I can already see this. I think I've seen images of
Let's not.
I've seen GFS models calling for an 882 millibar Michael. So that's
That
just to prove that.
sounds-
Never
You
trust
mean-
the GFS when it comes to intensity.
No, we
You
know
mean,
that by
yeah.
now.
Yeah,
I mean
definitely.
the NAM model.
That-
GFS
that's-
never said anything like that.
Just in case anyone didn't get the memo in the chat or anyone, never trust it when it comes to intensity. Tracks maybe if you want, but never, ever with intensity.
Well,
Just
I mean,
wait,
just
it's gonna be
the US.
882 millibars.
It's not pressure. I mean, you can follow it for wind speed. Just the pressure is usually pretty off because the coupling isn't exactly spot on. Same issue with the NAM. I've seen people posting NAM runs. Don't use the NAM for tracking TCs. It's not coupled correctly with the ocean. It's designed more for like winter type
This one in
storms.
particular
Those
calling
going to-
for 958 Leslie.
And then like
What else?
you got models like the HWF which are programmed to develop hurricanes. The NAM is not programmed to develop hurricanes, so it's gonna produce some pretty outlandish scenarios. So don't trust the NAM model in general for tracking tropical cyclones.
This GFS run I'm looking at is calling
Just
for a
a minute on that.
956, Leslie.
a lot of people, Hank, we must talk about this a little bit as well. You tend to see a lot of people who cherry pick their model runs.
Yeah, in general, just try and stick with the main two. Just stick with the GFS and the Euro, basically. If you're more keen into meteorology and want to get more like in depth as to what the model solutions are, then yeah, branch out.
I mean,
But if
like,
you're
people will
just-
go and look at, will deliberately go out and find the most intense model run and say, oh, hey, look what's going to happen this week.
Into thin air.
I mean, most
Well, you
most
said
media
that, not me.
Yeah, most media
Sea
sources.
surface temperatures, according to this, near where 05A is about 28, 27, possibly 29. So we could see something, could not, never know.
Is that Hank
Yeah,
showing
well.
us that GFS run?
Oh, I just had it parked here, but I guess so. Yeah, so okay, this is the GFS solution for Michael. That's about a Cat 2 moving into Florida right there near Panama City, Emerald Beach, that area. And then
Yeah, it
moving
does
over to
appear to
Carolina.
be
I mean, all these models,
89% in Panama City of tropical storm force winds, and you can see why.
yeah, all these models show the generally same solution here. So, I mean, I'm just going to go through and just show intensity differences. The Euro, I'm actually going to zoom in here, closer in. The European model just shows basically pressures of, that was the wrong, I always forget which one it is. Okay, yes, this one. Shows 969 millibars, so that's probably moving in as a Cat 2 as well. Though, I mean, Cat 3 at this point seems more likely just because it's got more time, and,
Yep.
I mean, even the Euro's speeding up this thing at this point, so, I mean, Cat 3 is probably the most likely solution, I'd say. Some more hurricane-coupled models here. Don't take these intensities verbatim. Basically, what I'm just kind of stick. I don't know why it's in there. Just stick with the actual landfall point. HWF's calling for a Cat 3 landfall. Pretty much, yeah, right over Emerald City, basically, and then moving in Emerald Beach, and then moving up through the Carolinas, who are still dealing with the aftermath of Florence, and yeah, it's. Honestly, that's like pretty much exactly where Alberto hit, so that's interesting. And then the HMON, similar, slightly weaker, but same general area, Panama City, Cat 3 on Wednesday around noon, basically. I think the HWF
Wednesday.
actually see what time it was.
Weren't the National Hurricane Center saying it would be later than that initially?
Yeah, it seems like the models are speeding up a little bit at this point.
Well, that might be
I don't know how I
maybe
feel
good
about
news.
that. I feel like it's still going to be like Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening when this thing actually comes on shore. But I mean, this model shows 18Z. That's 2 p.m. For these guys. So, or maybe 1 p.m. Like the line's like actually like right here. So it's 1 p.m. Central Time for these guys. So, I mean, it could be faster, and if it's a bit faster, I mean, 6 hours won't make too big of a difference. So, in terms of track, so I mean, it probably won't be that big of a hindrance towards anything.
Looking back at this National Hurricane Center graphic to remind you what they're saying for the most likely arrival time for tropical storm force winds, that's not the center of the storm. Wednesday morning, Hank.
Wednesday morning, they're saying now.
Yeah.
For the arrival of tropical storm force winds. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds about right.
That's actually from the... yeah, that is the most up-to-date advisory.
Look at that Monday 2 p.m. little dash line. That is very relevant right now.
Well, we know that tropical storm force winds are going to be occurring in western Cuba.
Yeah.
Hurricane force winds.
Hurricane force winds,
Well,
even.
actually,
Let's just cycle it back. Well, there's the... people might want to see this graphic here. The tropical storm force wind speed probabilities over the next 5 days. And you can see very clearly there very high chances of that along that whole region of the panhandle of Florida. And decent chances extending over to Tampa as well, about 40%, 35-40%. And up into the Carolinas as well, which haven't really been mentioned very much, but that's something we're worried about, I think. I'm right in saying, because there could be another, maybe up to 8 inches of rain over there.
Yeah,
that's not something they need right now.
Let's bring us back to the latest satellite imagery, which updates on its own. So we'll see if there's anything new in this imagery here. There is a gap, which might be the storm's eye, just towards the center there. But in general, how do you guys think it's looking right now? Is the intensification continuing?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't continuing to intensify.
It was ATCO.
Well, there we are. David, you got anything for us over there? You've been quiet.
Unfortunately, I've run into a major technical issue with the audio on the Facebook page, and I'm sitting here quietly trying to sort out what's going on. It looks like it's a Facebook issue. The broadcasting side, my end's working beautiful, but I'm just not picking up any audio on the Facebook page. So, apology for that. And that's all I've got at this point in time, Nathan. But Michael, it is another system that everyone will have to monitor. The information within the National Hurricane Center's advisory has sent out a very strong message, and now we have it as a hurricane. And how deep is Michael going to get?
On the screen, we'll talk about that shortly, but on the screen you can see in another representation the percentage chances of tropical storm conditions on the map there. The southern part of the US first, and then further north you can see 20 to 25% as far as Richmond and Norfolk, Virginia. But regarding the pressure of this storm, guys, will it be like Opal in that its pressure may be much below what you'd expect for its intensity as it gets going?
Probably not. Opal was a very large storm, so even though it had a pressure of like 916 or something like that, it was still a Cat 4. For Michael, it's going to be a lot smaller than Opal, and probably not going to be moving as fast as Opal was doing per se. So I would assume that the pressure would be probably more in line with what you would expect for that of a Cat 2, 3, maybe 4 hurricane. Something like in the 950s, something like that seems plausible to me. Something like that. I don't know. It's still pretty early to say.
No, of course. We've got another 25 minutes to run here whilst we're live. We'll be live again later this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll also have more updates on Michael. I think we'll have an update at 9 p.m. That might be shifted back to 10 now, I'm not sure. And we'll also have an update at 6 a.m. Gulf Standard Time for Cyclone Luban. No idea how to pronounce that thing, but there we go. And that's obviously going to be of real interest to those over there who saw Mekunu earlier in the year, but it's looking less likely that we're going to get Mekunu Mark II. If you've got any questions for us on the stream, start your message with Force 13. I think I sort of roundabout answered some questions there that appeared not long ago. So, I mean, there was a question earlier about how strong we think it will be when it makes landfall. I mean, the National Hurricane Center, they're going with a Category 3 landfall, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's saying something. And Norway Tracking says, how strong do you think it will peak at? So I guess we're sort of rounding on the question, will it peak near landfall or will it weaken a bit before then?
I think it'll weaken a bit after peak intensity before landfall because of a likely eye wall replacement cycle, because that's what hurricanes tend to do when they get very strong.
Yeah, storms that approach the Gulf of Mexico, they very rarely make landfall at their peak intensity. Especially for a storm that's occurring during October, it's pretty unlikely that Michael will make landfall at peak. There could be an eye wall replacement, like Tyler said, or this just could be due to shelf water cooling, which is pretty normal for Gulf tropical cyclones. The only storms that I can recall in the Gulf that have made landfall at peak intensity were Harvey, Charlie, and Ike's secondary peak intensity. So those are the only three that I can recall. I mean, Camille was peaking at landfall, but already made a prior stronger peak. It's very unusual to see these. And note how both Harvey and Charlie, those weren't on the northern Gulf Coast. Those were on more the western and eastern Gulf Coast, respectively. Michael will be making landfall on the North Gulf Coast, and in addition to the speeding up of the storm, that means that there's going to be naturally an increase in shearing. So that means that the storm is likely to weaken somewhat before landfall, but that doesn't mean that sheer rainfall, even wind impacts, will be reduced. That, if anything, that just means that the storm will just be growing in size and being more significant than it otherwise would be.
What do we really think this storm could peak at before it strikes?
It could do anything, in my opinion.
I feel like this is likely to be a major hurricane in some form. It could be a 3, could be a low-end 4. I'm seeing talk about it getting higher and up into Cat 4, and the conspiracy is getting to 5. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen with Michael. Very unlikely. Even though sea surface temperatures are definitely warm enough, the upper atmosphere just isn't quite prime enough for it to get that strong. But Cat 3, sure. Cat 4, maybe. Cat 5, no. This is not going to get to a 5. No. Go away.
Let's hope not. I don't think is there a record of that ever happening in October?
A 5 in October? Yeah.
In the Gulf?
Oh, in the Gulf. I guess the closest we got was Opal. I can't really think of one that was a 5 in the Gulf during October.
No.
Maybe I'm blanking. I don't know. Yeah, I can't think of any.
Nor can
Opal
I.
was probably the closest we got. all the October Cat 5s have been in the Caribbean, basically.
Yes, indeed, and I guess if it had longer to spend in the Caribbean, then the higher chance that the chances of it being stronger would have been higher, right?
More than likely, yeah. I mean, storms that persist in the Caribbean like this, or like Michael could have, usually get pretty strong in October, especially during this portion of the year. And this type of setup, I've been kind of harping that this is the time of year that we really need to watch for something that could be pretty big. Michael appears to be that storm right now. Usually, you get something that's pretty strong. That's usually pretty strong during this portion of the year in October, generally in the Caribbean. I mean, some years you just go without it. I mean, last year we kind of went without it, but usually you get one big October surprise.
Are you seeing these latest frames, Hank, and everyone else, of the eye appearing to start to come out now?
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. It might be very close to being out by the next NHC advisory at 5.
Well, let me refresh ATCF, see if they've updated. Not yet. They'll probably say 80 miles an hour, I would assume. Maybe even 85, I don't know. If in any regard, though, this is still a strengthening hurricane. Still something you need to be, if you're living in Florida, you need to be paying very close attention to. If you haven't already gotten out, and if you don't have your preparation started, start now. Get them done by tomorrow night at the very latest. And then if you're in an evacuation zone, get out. Please adhere to your local officials for the latest information regarding anything related to this storm. If you're in a flood-prone area, even if your area just floods normally, like just in general, then you should probably get out, because storm surge with Michael is going to be significant, especially towards the east of where it makes landfall. Rainfall is going to be significant, as it is with any tropical cyclone. I mean, wind's still going to be significant, but the rainfall and storm surge to water is going to be the biggest threat with this storm, as with it does in any storm. So just listen to your local officials for the best information you can get for your area, and we're going to do our best to try and portray what they say to make it more, I guess, widespread in nature, to kind of reach out to a wider audience.
And this part of the US, the Florida Panhandle, how are they doing for rain at the minute?
Let me check I think they've gotten I think they're average right now. Let me check the drought monitor. I feel like they wouldn't be big. I know Florida, the main peninsula, has been having some drought issues. I don't know about the Panhandle. Yeah, the Panhandle is fine right now. In fact, all of Florida's fine right now. They're just abnormally dry in spots. So yeah, I mean, pretty much there's a little bit of a gap between Florida and the Carolinas, because obviously the Carolinas got a lot of rain
no doubt
during September. I mean, a lot of rain. And then the Florida Panhandle got quite a bit in September as well, due to Gordon and some other disturbances that came up and other stuff like that. And yeah, the South in general has just been really wet recently, especially Texas. It's been extremely wet at my place, for one. And it's just been a wet couple months or month or so across the South as a whole, basically. And that even extends further up north as well.
Oh, I didn't realize you were showing the drought map. There it is.
Well, I mean, I'm just showing that, Florida, like the Panhandle where Michael's supposed to hit. I mean, it's not in any significant need for rain, as opposed to maybe some place like the Four Corners, which badly need it right now.
And that's despite Rosa.
Yeah, and then maybe Sergio is also going to come through and give them quite a bit of rainfall as well. Rosa's is mainly focused in Arizona, not really up here at the Four Corners as much.
Yeah, okay. There again is the latest imagery of Michael right now. I don't know if anyone else wanted to say anything at that point. In which case, we have some questions about whether we track blizzards in the winter. Well,
Me,
I
yeah.
don't, but if we've got people who want to cover blizzards on Force 13's US channel, then we're all ears.
Yeah. Where I live, we get blizzards like every other week during the winter. Sometimes, well, not blizzards, not literal blizzards, but big
Winter storms.
snowstorms.
And
I get blizzards every
Yeah.
other century.
Hope you have fun wherever you are. We have blizzards like twice a year.
And do we track European windstorms in winter? If it's a really bad one, then we might. I mean, it sort of depends what happens.
Right.
Like this
Nathan,
one.
I'm now picking up on Twitter, the Bay County Emergency Management, Bay County, Florida Emergency Services, Panama City, Florida. Mandatory evacuation orders are now in place for zones A, B, and C down there in Florida.
Where exactly was that again?
I think it was Bay County, Florida Emergency Management, FEMA, Region 4, and for zones A, B, and C.
That's the Panama City area, correct?
Yes.
Blimey.
So that's just I've just cited that on Twitter, and the audio issue has now been resolved for Facebook.
So we're broadcasting on Facebook now?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
We'll be right for the next broadcast.
Yeah,
I'm
unfortunately,
just
there's
going
only
to
just... Go ahead.
quickly butt in here. ATCF just updated. Michael is up to 80 miles an hour. Sergio's down to 85 miles an hour. Leslie hasn't been updated yet.
So
And then
pretty
Luban
soon,
hasn't changed.
pretty soon
And then,
Michael's
yeah.
going to be the strongest storm in the world.
By pressure, it's on par with Sergio.
978, both
Yeah.
of them. Okay, interesting.
Sergio is
Yeah.
weird. It's annular,
It's
almost
very
annular
weird.
hurricane, but the eye is just very large.
It was 90 nautical mile. 90. National Weather Service Corpus Christi. In addition,
Corpus
a high
Christi.
risk of dangerous rip currents will be in effect for the next several days. So the National Weather Service, and I will be sourcing other information for our next
Hank,
stream.
back on that. Oh yeah, I was just asking about the ATCF information. I saw it for myself. That's okay. What haven't we shown on our stream so far?
I got one. It's
Got
the
just
flash
over
flooding
10
potential.
minutes. Okay, let's look at this.
So if it's up on the screen right now.
Yes, we've got it.
Yeah, so there's already a moderate chance of it happening, being predicted right here in Florida, reaching into Georgia, a larger 10% area reaching all the way up to South Carolina and into Alabama, and there's a marginal chance reaching even all the way up to Virginia, down to Tampa. Actually, near Tampa's already a slight, if you can see it right there, and reaching to North Carolina. Of course, this isn't the final map they produced, because for Florence, it was the general area for the high and moderate was in this area, but that spread out across the Carolinas and into Virginia. So this area is probably going to grow as Michael gets closer to landfall.
And the National Weather Service Corpus Christi, they've just put out a posting, or actually 18 minutes ago. Although Hurricane Michael is in the southern Gulf and poses no direct threat to the Texas coast, we are beginning to see some impacts, increased swells, and resulting in minor coastal flooding, wave height run up reaching the dunes for the next several days, especially during high tide. And one of the key messages in the National Hurricane Center's advisory on Hurricane Michael is storm surge.
And there's another look at how the storm's been progressing all day on that imagery there. Yeah, very interesting. To remind everyone of what the current warnings are in relation to this storm right now, a hurricane warning is in effect for Pinar del Rio in Cuba, a tropical storm warning for the Isle of Youth in Cuba and the coast of Mexico from Tulum to Cabo Catoche, including Cozumel. A storm surge watch for Navarro, Florida to Anna Maria Island, including Tampa Bay. A hurricane watch for the Alabama-Florida border to Suwannee River, Florida. And a tropical storm watch from Suwannee River to Anna Maria Island, including Tampa Bay. And the Alabama-Florida border to the Mississippi-Alabama border. As you see at the bottom of the screen every so often, you'll see the rainfall expectations and the storm surge expectations as well. Don't suppose if you want to talk about storm surge, 8 to 12 feet in Indian Pass to Crystal River, Florida, guys.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Bend region of Florida is really susceptible to storm surge, especially with the storm coming in with this sort of trajectory like Michael. Yeah, I mean, 9-foot surge in Big Bend seems, seems likely that there's going to be some sort of coastal flooding of some sort that'll extend pretty far inland. I mean, fortunate thing is that not a lot of people live along this portion of coastline. Very few, actually. I can really think of in the areas like St. Mark's and Perry, and that's about it. Similar to where Hermine hit, but obviously Michael's likely to be a lot stronger than Hermine was. And another point of note is that you can kind of see how... if you could just kind of scroll up really quickly there. Yeah, you can kind of see how close towards Panama City it kind of drops off quite a bit. That's just because of the trajectory of the storm. If it does come in closer towards Panama City, then there will be increased values between Panama City and Apalachicola. But in general, you can kind of see how it's really confined to basically Apalachicola to Homonersa Springs, even up towards almost like Spring Hill. Places quite closer to Tampa won't be as bad.
Was I right in saying earlier today that the GFS model has been saying that the storm would make landfall between Pensacola and Panama City?
I feel like it'd be close to Panama City at this point, maybe even a bit further east. Just depends on how fast the storm moves. It moves through the Yucatan Channel at this point.
Now, what do you mean by that? If it moves quickly, what will happen?
So if it moves faster, then that means it's going to be moving. It's going to make landfall farther west. And that's just because the trough that's been planted out of the Rockies right now, it's going to be moving at a constant pace regardless of Michael's movement. So if Michael moves faster for any reason, then it's going to be propelled further with a more northerly component, which will push it in further towards the western part of the cone. But if Michael slows down a little bit, it takes longer to make landfall, and it's likely to be pushed off further towards the east because the trough of the Rockies will be moving further towards the east, and it will force the storm to take a more easterly component to its movement, which will force it in closer towards Apalachicola and maybe even into the Big Bend region of Florida if it does delay itself enough. Either way, and then this track also extends for inland areas, so faster means it's going to move farther west. It's going to be further inland. Lower, then it's going to recurve closer towards the coastline, towards basically the Florence areas, I'd say. Ugh. And maybe even further offshore. It's hard to say at this point because that's past landfall, and we still kind of need to see how the storm evolves over the next.
Is there a chance then? Is there a chance then that this storm could go slower than expected, and to a point where it actually misses the Carolinas out to sea?
That's possible. It would really have to slow down quite a bit, though. It's more than likely it's just going to follow basically what the National Hurricane Center was forecasting at this point. That seems the most likely solution to me.
Well,
it could. Also, if it does slow down, it's probably going to be a bit stronger at landfall. So, I mean, and by strength, I mean just wind. The only thing that's going to increase really is just the wind speed, and the rain impacts and the surge impacts won't really be affected by that. But that also means if it's delayed, it's going to move in further east, which means it's going to move into a less densely populated area. That's, I mean, the Big Bend region of Florida is virtually no one lives there, so that is some good news. But if it does move faster, it's going to be moving into areas that are more densely populated, in quotation marks. So either way, though, landfall in Florida is pretty much a given at this point with this storm. As some form, it could be as weak as a Cat 1, could be as strong as a Cat 4. It's kind of hard to say at this point, but we'll continue to update you at this point.
And you did a video not so long ago on the US channel.
Yes, I did. So I posted an update to my channel, then re-uploaded it to the Force 13 US channel. So if you want to, I guess, have a bit more of a synoptic rundown of Michael and even Leslie to a lesser extent, then you can go ahead and check out that video once the stream is done, and it should be done pretty soon. So if you want to go check that out, then by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much it from this hour. So anyone else briefly before we wrap up here? They'll forever hold their peace then in that case. Of course, we'll have many more updates on all of the storms out there in the world at the minute. Of course, we've got Michael, which is intensifying, and as Hank said, it could go anywhere amongst the categories almost, as it continues to develop in the Gulf of Mexico. Don't underestimate that area. Hopefully, it will stay weaker, and maybe some dry air will get into it. Just a quick thought on that, Hank. Dry air.
Oh yeah. I feel like it's not going to be too big of a problem, especially if it can get a lot of shielding, I guess, on its western end. Then any potential intrusions within the eye wall could probably get, I guess you could say, probably get shielded a little bit from any drier air that could be in the western Gulf. The air doesn't have to be desert dry to actually impact the storm, but if it does get entrained into the core, then that might level off intensification. But that also means that the storm's wind field might grow. So either way, it's still going to be significant regardless of anything else.
Well, there we go. That's us done for now. Thanks everyone for joining us for this hour. Thank you to the team there. And as stated, we're going to be doing plenty of other things over the next few hours. The next update is not for a little while, I think. I'm not sure when our next update is now. We're going live again at 7 PM Eastern Time, though. So we'll be back again for maybe an hour, maybe two, with another live update on the air. And that's going to be on the same link that you're on right now, Force13 on YouTube, youtube.com/Force13/live, in case you're in any doubt. And there's going to be an update on Luban as well. At 6 AM Gulf Standard Time. That's going to be quite away from now, but that's the next update on that storm coming up for you, for those over there in the Arabian Peninsula. Until next time, the stream is staying open with the automated service. We just won't be talking for a while whilst we go out and do some background information and change some numbers and do some things here and there, but we'll keep everything up because we believe that it is a useful tool for people to be able to see at any time what the latest situation is, even if we're not here to talk about it. We sort of have to gather ourselves for the next stream so that we can continue to provide it in the best possible way. But until next time, 7 PM Eastern, that's when we're next here. We'll see you then.